Now that you have a basic understanding of how to use Elementor, let's take these basic skills and dive a little deeper into the plugin by building out an entire website. I showed you earlier the Terradium website that we'll be creating. We already have our global settings dialed in, and now we're ready to work with more granular items. We will accomplish this by using a variety of Elementor widgets and looking more deeply into how we can harness them to build out a beautiful custom website. We'll begin by creating some of the reusable sections that we're going to repeat throughout our website. These sections will ultimately be template blocks that can be used throughout the website. Let's begin by opening one of our pages. I'm going to click the hamburger menu. We'll click Exit to Dashboard, and this always takes you to the page that you were on. I'm going to click the WordPress link, and now I'm returned to the General Pages area of WordPress. We'll begin by working on the Design and Service page. As you can see, I do not have the Edit with Elementor since we have not yet used Elementor on this page. So I'll click the name of the page, then we'll click Edit with Elementor, and then we are in the Elementor editor. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to remove this page title that says Design and Service. We can do that by going to the Settings button in the lower left-hand pane, and then under the General Settings, we're going to want to hide the title, and we're going to want to change our page layout to be Elementor full width. Once we do this, the updates are going to be applied to this particular page. Now let's begin working on creating some content. We'll begin by creating a one-column section. I'm going to make sure the section is selected by ensuring that this little blue icon is showing. We're going to keep our content width at boxed, and we'll change the width to 1200. This will set a maximum width of the actual page content. Next, I'm going to go down to height, and I'm going to change this to min height. I'll set the minimum height to VH, or vertical height, and we'll plug in a value of 40. This will take up 40% of the available vertical height. Next, I'm going to go to the Style tab. This is where I can assign a background image to this particular section. I'll click the classic or paintbrush icon to get into the background editor. We're going to click on Choose Image, which will take us to our media library, and I'm going to find the appropriate image for this page. Once I've found that, I'm going to click Insert Media, and then what we're going to do is we're going to change the position to center and right. We're going to change the repeat to no repeat, and we're going to change the size to cover. Next, we're going to add a background overlay in addition to the photograph. So I'm going to open up the background overlay area, and once again, I'm going to click the classic editor. For the background overlay, we're going to actually be using a gradient. So I'll click the gradient value, and I'm going to specify a color for the first portion of the gradient. For right now, I'll just set that to turmeric so we can actually see what's happening. Once I do this, you can see that the gradient is going to transition from the first color to the second color that we've specified. You can control the direction of the gradient by using the angle slider. So we're going to change our gradient to 90 so that it goes from left to right. Next, I'm going to adjust the location. This is the location at where the gradient is going to occur, where the transition is going to occur. We're going to increase this to about 40 so that the first color is going to appear for about 40% before the transition will occur. I'm also going to change my opacity to 0.75 so that the gradient is a little bit more opaque. Now, finally, let's dial in the colors that we ultimately want to use. I'm going to change the yellow color to our white. And then I'm going to go to the second color, and we're going to go ahead and also use white, but we're going to reduce the opacity down to 0. In this way, our gradient is going from a white and transitioning out to being completely invisible. We're going to be putting text on the left-hand side of the screen, so I want to ensure that my text is easily readable on top of the images. The next thing we'll do is we'll go back to the widgets. We're going to create an inner section, so I'm going to drag the inner section widget to the middle of this section. By default, the inner section widget is going to create a 2-column layout. You can increase the number of columns by using the plus or right-clicking on Edit Column, but for our purposes here, we just need the 2 columns. In the first column, I'm going to add a header, and we're going to change the text so it says transform your space. Next, we're going to set this text to be an H1, and then I'm going to move on to the Style tab. For the Style tab, we're going to set the text color to our primary color. We're going to set the typography to our hero H1. And then we're going to add a text shadow. So I'll click on the pencil icon next to the text shadow. And we're going to change the blur amount to 4. And we're going to have the horizontal and vertical offset be 1. And then we'll change the color of the drop shadow to be white. And I'm going to make it slightly more opaque, making it about 60%. This is going to ensure that when our text is on top of an image with more detail, the text will stand out a little bit better. Now I'm going to go back to the widgets and we'll grab the text editor and drag it underneath the headline that we just created. I'll change this text so it has the appropriate text that we want to use. And you can get the text from the web copy document that I've provided to you with this course. This text is going to be a paragraph. I'm going to go to the Style tab and we'll set the color to our primary color. And then we're going to set our typography setting to the hero and footer copy. Now I can see right away that my line height needs to be increased a little bit. So I'm going to click on the typography pencil and I can augment any of these settings that we had previously made when we set our typography global fonts. We'll increase the line height for this text to 1.5. In addition, I'm going to set a text shadow. We'll use the same settings that we used on the headline. And the final thing that I want to do is I want my headline and my text to be a little closer together. What we'll do is we'll click on the column so that the column is selected, and we're going to change the widget space to 0. This will tighten up the text so that it is slightly closer together. The final thing that I'm going to do in this area is I'm going to select the inner column. We'll select the first column and we'll change the value to 50. Then I'm going to select the second column and ensure that it is also set to 50. Now our header is dialed in. We will be reusing this same sort of style throughout our site, but we want to make sure that everything is set and styled in the way that we want before we go ahead and build any additional pages. But so far, I think this looks great. I'll click Update to save my changes, and now our hero is all set.